All right, well, we do have 10 o'clock, a long meeting of order. I just wanted to, notice that we do have Commissioner Holland and Commissioner Waltham are joining us, via interactive technology, and their locations, are listed there and open. With that, we will rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we will do public comment. I do not see anybody here. Is there anybody online? Doesn't look like anybody online for public forum. So with that, we will move on. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, no additions, but I would like to note one correction on Commissioner Ludwig's claim form. The arithmetic is just a little, using the 2024 mileage number. Instead of 29.48, it should be $30.80 on his claims. Just a clarification there. And then also just note that County Attorney Reese Frederickson is absent. He has a grand jury.
I will move. Commissioner.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Holland. Is there any discussion on that yet? Good thing you get an extra buck and a half there. Good thing you get an extra $1.50. Hopefully your business. All right. We need a roll.
I think so, yep. Commissioner Waltham,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallen,
Yes.
Chair Moore,
Aye, but I think we gotta go to Waltham again. I mean, Holland spoke over.
Commissioner Waltham.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes. All right, moving on, minutes of the February 4th, 2025 board meeting summary for publication. Get a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got a motion by Nelson,
I can second.
second by Holman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallen,
Yes.
Chair Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Waltham.
Yes.
Okay, minutes of boards, committees and correspondence, looks like none, so we move on to the consent agenda. Anybody wants to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Ludwig will move. Second.
All right, motion by Ludwig, second by Holland. Is there any
No, that
discussion?
wasn't me.
Oh, Waltham, sorry, I wasn't looking. Man, we're getting you guys messed up today, sorry. All right, so motion by Ludwig, second by Waltham, am I correct, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, go ahead.
Commissioner Hallen,
Yes.
Chair Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Waltham,
Yes.
and Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda, facility committee report.
You want to take that, JJ?
Wasn't there, Matt.
What do you think?
Yep. It wasn't there.
Oh, he wasn't there? I don't even remember. Oh, that's right. Okay. I'll, so basically we had the facilities meeting, because the security committee was coming up and there's gonna be changes in the building and stuff, so we had to kind of incorporate the guys in the building into what was gonna be happening. And during that process, it really bakes down, we're gonna have a kiosk, a cam, a monitor, and a screen, and then a screen over the window right behind where the kiosk is gonna be, where that display is right now when you walk in. It's gonna be that north door main entrance. I think So we have that $13,000, and then they were gonna meet the next day, which I couldn't make because I had another meeting for the security committee meeting. But, so they're gonna just, everybody's gonna get their heads together. But in the process of this meeting, we had other things come up, like the physical environment in all of our, like a building like this one. And it's like, so the questions are like, well, what do we do? We have to be aware that we could have the same issues here and at other buildings too. So, and then there was the discussion of not gonna have an armed person there now. It's just going to be a uniform presence that has quick communication, and it'll be pretty much hopefully still comfortable for people just to come through when they see it, and then, you know, should flow pretty well. And then they are replacing, I think they replaced like 115 lights, converting them over to LLDs and things like that. System that should be good. And I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it. It was a pretty quick meeting, so.
So with the single point entry, the stuff at the top of the stairs, then, that gonna kind of move down?
No,
or- okay.
No, we're gonna add new because that needs to be there.
So that'll continue
Yes.
there.
That'll, because that's where the metal detector and all that stuff will still sit. We're not going to make the general public go through a metal detector yet. We're just gonna have a camera there and a person there, so it's comforting for some people, because some people are feeling the pressure. They watch the news and stuff like that. And it gives a set of eyes of just keeping what, you know, watching what's going on the main floor.
Okay.
And so we'll see how it goes, you know.
And Mr. Chair, and so these initial steps are like a phase one.
Yeah.
Should the situation develop that you wanted to implement a full screening single point of entry, these steps would fit into that program. And then it would really be equipment and staffing that would need to be increased.
If we start putting an armed person there, it's gonna be expensive, you know.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
will this be someone there all hours that the courthouse is open?
I think yes, it's gonna be 7:30 to 4:30 or something like that.
Yeah, correct,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ludwig. That the intent is there would be staffing there all hours when the courthouse is open.
Yeah.
And that doesn't eliminate the potential that if they're called away somewhere else, there might not be a person there when you walk to the courthouse, right? Because there's only one person.
Okay. So when they need to go on break, we're not gonna expect that somebody's gonna have to come and take their place. If they have to escort somebody to a office, they don't know where it is. We won't expect that somebody will have to come and replace them before they leave their post. That how it's gonna work?
Commissioner Hallen, that the intent is there would be a uniform staff presence there during courthouse hours, but there may be brief periods where that person isn't right there. And there isn't
Okay,
the depth of staffing right now that would have that would have somebody there guaranteed all the time. That would be another step that could be taken in the future.
one more follow-up question. Did I hear you say this was gonna be at the north door? So will those other double doors be locked?
Nope, that'll be, yeah, for entry. I think that's the way it's set up, because but you have the fire escape issues, so they'll come in you're approaching, you'll come in on the right side and you'll go out on the left side, which would be the south door. That's the way they're gonna create that flow.
Okay,
So the building, the entryway for the building was designed that way. And if you look at the automatic accessible entry buttons,
Yeah.
they're located so you would always enter on your right and exit on your right. So the north door is the in and the south door is the out. But that will just be a signage and a training issue of getting people used to that.
Yeah, question I had is about the personnel that would be manning that. Is that a specific hire for that? I mean, or is it a rotating or how? Where does this person sort of come from?
Existing staff at this.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nelson. So that staff, there was an additional part-time staff position in the 2025 budget for court security with the thought that they would be able to ramp up to this position.
So my follow-up will that be a specific person or will it be some sort of pool of several? I mean, just.
Yes,
That's a good question, because I think that's what I understand it to be, is a pool of people that might be manning it, and they'll all be trained up. But
yeah, that's correct. There'll be primarily there'll be an individual identified, but there will be substitutes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, any other questions about that facility committee? Looks like no county board action necessary. We will move on to personnel committee report, and I can take it if you want.
go ahead, I'll fill in if you.
We met on February 10th, made the following recommendations. Acknowledge the retirement of Tam Lawrence, but 3 auditors effective March 14th, 2025. With 31 years of service and authorized to backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Also approve the updated clerk 3 auditor job description. With them two, I will make a motion to approve them.
I will second.
Is there any discussion on these two? Okay, hearing none, go ahead and call them.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Waldham,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hallen.
Yes,
Okay, so with that as well, then were the action items. We also, it wasn't that quick. It never is, but with that, human resources manager Jackie, told us about the kudos program. And I think all the commissioners did see some of that come through. It's I don't know, Jackie, do you want to just give an update on it? Maybe it's better than me.
Sure. Mr. Commissioner, members of the board, I'm Jackie Coivisto, HR manager. And yes, at the last personnel committee meeting, we talked about the kudos program. And the kudos program was born out of the 2024 strategic planning sessions that we held. And one of the tasks we were tasked with was to form an employee recognition committee. And so the committee has been hard at work. It's made up of employees from different areas of the county. And one of the first initiatives we have come up with is the kudos program. So it's an email and where any employee can recognize any other employee in the county for a job well done. And also, we received a grant from the Initiative Foundation, and we have $1,500 of seed money. And every month, we will have a drawing and select 2 names from those employees that have received kudos. And the winners of the drawing will receive a prize funded by the Initiative grant up to $50. And the whole purpose is to build a culture of recognition. And this was our first endeavor.
Thank you. With that, we found out that us commissioners can make recommendations as well. So if you guys have anybody, send it in. I think we all know at least a few, if not most of the county personnel that probably deserve this, so go ahead and send it in if you want. thank you for that. Also, I think that was about it, wasn't it? I urge everybody to take a peek at this recruitment update, that Jackie's been doing for quite a while now. It is pretty nice to look at, open positions, new hires, separations, just to kind of keep a tally on it. And this is very fluid and usually, she puts on there if they're hired, certain times that doesn't show on here or whatever, but, looks a lot better than it used to, I'll say that. We had a time where this would take up a full page of paper, if not more. So I think we're doing some good things here in the county and appreciate what, Jackie, you and your staff, have been doing. So thank you. Okay. With that, we'll move on to number 3, Pine County ARPA funded mental health program. So we have an online presentation by, Mary Jo Petrox, sorry if I butchered that, and Brianna Ranks. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us to be here. And again, thanks for the Zoom link on such a cold Minnesota winter day. I am going to share my screen in a second here, but like what was shared, we are wanting to share with all of you the programming that we have done over the last few years that was funded generously by Pine County under ARPA funds. So we were able to do some really focused programming around mental health and really taking a multi kind of generational and multi-lens approach to the work that we're doing to help connect youth and parents and caregivers and community to support the mental well-being of youth and families in Pine County. So I am going to share my screen here. I'm going to make sure, let's see here. The beginning, 1 second. So again, thank you. My name is Mary Jo Petrox, and I am with the Department of Family Health and Wellbeing at University of Minnesota Extension. And I am the program leader that leads the programming in that program area called Family Resiliency, which I'll talk about in a minute, across the state. And I will let Brianna introduce herself when I pass the baton on to her. But like I said, like I started out saying, I'm going to share some of the programming that we have done under this funding and share some of the great things that happened over the last few years. So just as a reminder, Extension is statewide and we have regional and Extension County offices throughout the state. So I thought this is just a good visual to remind folks if they're not familiar with Extension, our reach across the state and our mission is to meet the needs of Minnesota families and communities. And so we very much take that approach, not a top-down approach, but a very much an approach starting with community, listening and learning to help meet the needs and identify needs throughout the state. So we have staff located throughout the entire state in all 87 counties. So we have 4 departments within our College of Extension, and we are one of them, Family Health and Wellbeing, but I just wanted to share that we also have our Agricultural and Natural Resource Systems Department, Department of Community Development, and Department of Youth Development. Sometimes I think everyone doesn't understand what departments our college has within them, and so I just wanted to share kind of both the kind of breadth and depth of our content areas within the College of Extension. So within our department, like I shared a minute ago, we are really focused around family. So each of our departments kind of start with one area of focus, and for like youth development, that's 4-H, and so they start with youth, as you probably all know, but we start with families, and we know that families are at the heart of the work that we do, but we need to zoom out and understand the context in which families live, and that's what all this work is about that we've done the last couple of years. Few years in Pine County focusing on mental well-being. We put communities first. We have expertise within the university, but we know that community are experts as well, right? So we are the university is one piece of the puzzle, but communities are another piece of the puzzle that we need to come together and work in partnership in order to meet the needs that everyone is seeing throughout their county, their community, and any other places, so that we can come together to really be relevant and be impactful. And relationships matter. They are so important in the work that we do. We can be out there, providing education, but if we do not have the relationships within the communities, and the people that we are working with, it does not work. And so we know that. And so we take relationship building very, very seriously, and it is at the forefront of the work that we do. And sometimes that means we might not move as fast because we need to make sure that we're building those relationships. Just wanted to share really quickly that these are kind of the topic areas that we have within our department. And we focused around mental health for this work, but we also have all of these other things. And recently within Pine County, we've been working with the Family Resource Centers to do some financial capability, as well as RentWise, which is our housing curriculum. So we did some train the trainer within Pine County this past year. And we also did some mental health education with a new program that we launched this year called Comment, and it is changing our mental and emotional trajectories. So it's really helping people have the language to reach out and support each other within their community around mental well-being. So if you've heard of that, that is some of the things that we've been doing this past year beyond this work that we'll share about in a minute. So the impetus for this work was a conversation with Becky Foss from Health and Human Services, and really wanting to really kind of meet the needs that folks were seeing, that they were seeing around youth mental health. And you all are probably aware of just the heightened need for mental health education over the past few years. Pre-pandemic, we were kind of at that cliff of there was lots of need around mental health for youth. COVID kind of pushed us over that cliff, and it's continued to just rise since then. And so these are some of the, I'm not going to read through these, but some of the statistics from the Minnesota Student Survey in 2022. There will be a new one coming out in 2025. So there will be, it will be interesting to see what some of this data has changed, hopefully. But just that, students are thinking that they're not being cared for in their communities. They have had traumatic events in their childhood that are influencing their mental well-being, and that they have been over 28% and almost half of, or 28% of males and almost half of females have been treated for mental, emotional, or behavioral issues in the last year. And then just some long-term kind of health problems as well. So all of that, coupled with some of the other things that we had been seeing and hearing through some of our work that we have done, that we did with Becky Foss and her team around the opioid crisis, it really brought us to this point where we needed to focus in, and there was opportunity to help to do some education and resource sharing and learning within Pine County for youth, to support youth mental health. Sorry, I did not mean to do that. Okay, so our approach was holistic. So we know that we can provide youth with education, right, with mental health education, but if we're not zooming out to include parents, elders, and caregivers and the community, like schools and other organizations, it's really not as impactful. To be able to educate across that continuum is really important for the efficacy of the work, for really that preventative education to be destigmatized and normalized within all of these spaces amongst all of these groups, right? So if we are teaching youth, around how to cope with their own mental health and giving them the tools and resources, but we're not sharing that with parents, that's really hard for that to be as impactful as we would want. Because, if we do educate parents, elders, and caregivers, then they can start to use the same language that the youth are using, and all of those educational pieces come together. And similarly in schools and other community organizations as well. And so that's the approach that we took within this work. So I am going to turn it over to my colleague Brianna to introduce herself and then talk about some of the things that happened over the last few years. And Brianna, just let me know when you want me to forward and I will the slides.
Bonjour, everyone. Nawakamugu Indigenous Cause, Name Dudame, Ajamugan Dun Jaba. Good to see everyone in Pine County, my old stomping grounds. I shouldn't say old stomping grounds, they're still my stomping grounds. But Steve, good to see you. Glad to see everyone is staying warm today in their homes. But yeah, I'm really excited to be able to share some of the work that we've been able to do. With the funding that we were able to receive from Pine County. And I'm sure we are missing a few events because there's just been so much work that just intersects with Pine County. But this is just an overview of some of the things that we did. So as Mary Jo said, connecting to youth, parents, and elders and caregivers, a couple of things that we did is, I don't know if you all know of Catherine Kalsrud, but she has been, we engaged with her to do a couple events. One was a community paint-along event, and I didn't know this about her. She's a lifelong community member, but she loves to do painting. And so what we did is we were able to buy some supplies for her, and she brought them to Mashaakwat, our community center right there in Hinckley, and basically did a paint-along event. So awesome feedback that we got. If any of you have ever done a painting event, it is a fun time to be able to use our creativity. And it's also very healing and connecting. A lot of times, when we've got experiences within our life or out there in the community, the first thing that sort of drops from our life is being creative, and so that allows for the parts of our brain to come together and to heal, basically. So it's a very healing event. If you can ever attend a painting event, please do. But awesome feedback on that. We also worked with her to do a blanket making class. And so again, really bringing elders and youth together, connecting on culture. Again, when we can work with our hands, when we can create, it's very healing. It's a very emotional and meaningful experience that we were able to foster within the community. And so, yeah, so these are just a couple of things that we wanted to share with you all. Some of the funding was able, we were able to get supplies for these events. And yeah, it was great. And, Mary Jo, one of the things I remember is I believe Catherine had sent us some pictures, and I was going to add them in here, but it was like the PowerPoint was already sent to Pine County. So, but we do have pictures Catherine was able to send to us. So go ahead and switch. Yeah. One of the things that I was invited to do was to do an in-service keynote speaker presentation for Pine City School. And actually, I believe it was bigger than that. There were, I don't know, probably 100 people in the audience. But they were really looking to have someone speak about mental health, well-being, healing, relationships, because of sort of what was happening in the community during that time, or what was happening in the school system at that time. And so I was able to create a presentation that basically wove all of those pieces together. And so my presentation was called Connecting Through Relationships, Authenticity, and Attachment. And from that presentation, sort of got the ball rolling on many different relationships that connected after that presentation. But this presentation was really about understanding how important relationships are. And when we can build relationships, I believe this is something that Mary Jo touched on just a few slides before, is really being able to build relationships so that we have trust. And when we can have trust, we can have vulnerability. And when we can have vulnerability, we can have authenticity. And when we can have all those things, we can have healing. And really sort of honing down the message that not only building relationships with our students, but building relationships with one another is so important. You know, we think about all of the healing spaces that are designed for healing, that are supposed to be safe places for us to be able to be our full authentic selves and to share open and honestly. And there's not a lot of places that are designed for that. And let me take that back. There are places that are designed for that, but in reality, they're not safe ones, right? So it is really about building relationships so that we can eventually get to healing. So yeah, so go ahead and forward the slide, Mary Jo. So like I said, from this presentation really spun out many different relationships that we connected with, partnerships, and you know, I'm still having people reach out to me. Matter of fact, I just got a request right before this meeting to do another presentation in Burnsville, which is sort of like, you know, when you start to make this network of folks, it all ripples out, right? So yeah, so from that presentation led into connecting with EPIC schools in Pine County. I did a healing, it was basically a condensed version of Healing Through History online. That again helps us to understand the historical context, but also it's so much bigger than that. You know, I do teach about Indigenous history, but when I also teach about Indigenous history, I also teach about historical trauma overall, that we all have it, right? Another one of the things that we got connected with is people had reached out. So I had 4 schools within Pine County, all 4 schools in Pine County, reached out and wanted me to be a part of the Indigenous Peoples Day. And I was like, gosh, like, how can I make this work? 4 schools all in one day. They all separately messaged me wanting me to do something for IDP. And I was like, gosh, this is really important to me. And how do I make this work? So I was pretty methodical. I started out in Pine City at like 8:30 in the morning. From there, I went to Hinckley School at like 9:30 or 10. And then after that, I went to East Central. I think it was before lunch. And then I went to Willow River School at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon after lunch. And I hit all 4 schools. I wasn't able to do, say, like a big presentation or like a big gathering. And I know a couple of the schools wanted me to do like a entire school-wide presentation. I was like, whoa, that's a lot. But what I was able to do is meet with the Indigenous students and sort of talk about culture and, you know, what's happening, and just, again, really bringing about relationships and connecting, because this world does a beautiful job at separating us out. And so yeah, so that was Indigenous Peoples Day, 4 schools, 1 day, got her done. Which also led into working with the NASA students in Hinckley, and also working with Vision School in Pine City. The NASA students, of course, have really taken a hold of their program and really doing some amazing things with it. I've done quite a few group like circles with them. You know, they started a drum group, and, you know, they're doing ribbon skirt making and blanket making things, and just really connecting together with Indigenous students at Hinckley. And so it's awesome to see. And it's awesome to see I would say a lot of the teachers, not all of the teachers, but a lot of the teachers supporting that program, which is great. It's definitely not something that I saw when I was growing up at East Central. So it was really great to see.
Brianna,
Yeah.
can you just remind me what NASA I know it doesn't, it's not the space program.
Yeah, so it's Native American Student Advisory.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was close in my mind.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. Yeah, so great things happening there at Hinckley, and just because of the funding that we were able to secure, you know, just being able to support that group. Vision School. Now, Vision School is another one. We know that Vision School is right there in Pine City, you know, sort of a behavioral school that encompasses many different students, many different areas. And so they had reached out to wanting me to do some training. And so that's sort of how it started. They went to the presentation that I did for at the Pine City School and really wanted to connect more based on my presentation. And so I met with them. One of the things we started off doing was meeting with the students along with the teachers and doing some mindfulness exercises. So you know, one of the things that students have a really difficult time with is like regulating their nervous system, and especially at a behavioral school. So that's one of the first things that we would do in the morning when I would go up there and meet with them, is to do some mindfulness practices to not only help the students, you know, regulate their nervous systems, but also the teachers, right? Because oftentimes, you know, we ourselves are getting activated, and it's really about awareness within us so that we have the patience and understanding to be able to hold space for our students. And then I think we have a couple of slides on it. Mary Jo, go ahead and forward. Yeah. So one of the things that we continue to do with Vision School is, again, so like what this slide is showing is like, you know, introducing like talking circles, again, bringing about relationships. The more that we can have relationships with our students, again, the more trust that we will have. When we can build trust, we can build authenticity. When we can build authenticity, we can build healing. And so oftentimes we don't have enough time in this world to be able to really build authentic relationships, right? And so coming into the school, it was about checking in with the students, right? And not having it separate from the students and teachers, but including the teachers along with it, right? So we had big circles. We had a group in the morning with the littles, and then we had a group after that with the older students. Excuse me. And so again, it's about self-regulation, teaching the littles and teaching also the older students about emotions and our nervous system and sort of how we get activated. And so that has been, it's been awesome to see them incorporate more, but also the teachers too, more mindfulness activities within their classrooms. So, and awareness is key. You know, once we have awareness, we can do anything. You know, we have a responsibility to do something different when we know something different. So, let's see here. Yeah, relationship building. Yep. So yeah, so together with staff, we created trauma-supported environments. One of the things we did with Vision School with the funding that we got from Pine County is helping them to support their school with things that could help with self-regulation. So Mary Jo, you might have to help me. We ended up getting a punching bag. Was it an elliptical and then like a treadmill?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then also like these, there were some like stuffed animals and stuff like that, but also some like they were able to create calming rooms, right? So with those kind of stuffed animals, but then other kind of emotional support tools, like they had these canoes that they could sit in to feel really safe. And so all of those things kind of created this environment where kids could go to calm down if they needed to and to help practice their self-regulation, which was really important. And that's what this spaces were really about, is having the tools there so that they know that they could have these spaces to go and calm down, and then they could practice that at home as well. And so parents also got some kind of education around what was happening at the school and how these spaces were being created so that they could practice some of those things at home as well.
Yeah, the other thing that I remember that they ordered was like these big, huge, like lava lights. It's not lava, but it's filled with water. And it's supposed to be really soothing when you watch like this fish go up to the top. It's like a little plastic fish, and it just has a really cool light, and it's got bubbles in it. And so they were able to get a couple of those things. But what it does is it helps us to ground when we look at this light with these bubbles. It helps us to ground, to get centered, and chill out our nervous system for a bit. So the other thing that we did with Vision School was we hosted an event in the evening. We paired it with conferences. And so my other colleague, Susan Bolio, and we did a presentation around ACEs, trauma healing, the journey towards healthy families. And so we had 25 that attended that. We also provided supper for them. So I believe we also provided gift cards for those that attended. But again, it is really about creating an understanding around trauma education with students and families, right? So the parents or caregivers of the kids there at Vision School helps them to understand more of how to best support their students and their kids. So these are some of the things that we were able to purchase for Vision School. And you could see the kids there enjoying them. So another thing we did with Vision School, of course, is doing Mending Broken Hearts. So there were a handful of Vision staff that wanted to go through my workshop. And so we did that in the summer. They were able so graciously to take 3 days off their school time, or I should say summertime break, to go through Mending Broken Hearts. And what is really cool about that is now some of them have actually been trained to facilitate mending for the school or for the community. So again, it's sort of like this ripple effect of this work, how it impacts the networks that we're building, the connections, the partnerships that we're building, and now we are building the community's capacity for healing. So just some information about mending there. We did training. We are continuing to do training. So we have another one this month that's coming up next week. Again, some of you have been through Healing Through History, again, partnered with Pine County Health and Human Services. Just really teaching the history of American Indian people within Minnesota. We are still definitely doing that. I have a ton of requests for that, which is great. And given the landscape in which we are living in on this earth right now, this workshop is really, really important. And regardless of what's happening out there, again, I'm still getting requests to do this workshop, which is great. So just really thankful that I still have the ability to teach my workshop there. Another thing that sort of was a culmination of many different things is Reese Fredrickson reached out to me, wanted me to do all-day workshop for his Pine County staff attorneys. We did trauma-informed practices, and we had discussions on ways to heal. So that was a really great opportunity for us to, again, just to share more. I give my utmost respect to, you know, the county attorneys, what they deal with, our court administration, they deal with a lot. You know, they are dealing with trauma every single day. And I think for how big our county is and for the amount of work that they have on their shoulders and the amount of trauma that they deal with every single day, like it is so, so very important that we continue to talk about trauma-informed practices, that we continue to have discussions on ways to heal. And I think what was like one of the most important things that came out of that is like allowing ourselves to rest. And this world does a beautiful job at keeping us busy. This world does a beautiful job at keeping us disconnected. It does so many harmful and hurtful things. And especially when it comes to rest, you know, we live in a society that that encourages us to keep going. And I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but sometimes it's hard to take a day off. Like internally, we have this feeling within ourselves that it's really difficult to take a day off, that we deserve to take a day off. And one of the things I know to be true is rest is medicine. And so anyways, I share all that because you know, our Pine County staff there, they really do take on a lot. And it was an opportunity for us to be reminded to take care of ourselves and to know that rest is medicine and to support each other. Again, relationship building, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in our work that we don't have time to rest. This world, society doesn't give us time to rest or to build relationships, but it's ultimately where this world needs to go. So some of you have attended our Wisdom of Trauma events. One of the most recent ones we did was in, I believe it was the beginning of December. And but these events continue to be really impactful for our community. We partnered up with A Place for You. Matt Viney was able, like we were able to secure a place. We also partnered, well, another organization that was also there was Empower Recovery Services. So I was able to meet those folks again. It's been a while since I've connected with them, but those two organizations definitely supported this event. And we had like 25 people at this event, which is great. And one of the really cool things about this wisdom, so I'll just back it up to the Wisdom of Trauma event is a documentary that features Gabor Mate that talks about how trauma gets wired in and how it correlates to addiction. It sort of explains homelessness or houselessness with our relatives. And again, it's just it's another way that we can inform the community about trauma. So it's another beautiful way that we can educate our communities. So it's a documentary, it's a film. So we did that in December, and yeah, what was really cool in the end, and I think I'm almost done. So in the middle, or I should say in the end, when we were sort of discussing and debriefing the film and whatnot, we had two organizations that didn't really know each other in Pine County, but yet we're doing the same work. And so one person stood up and they said, why aren't we partnering with you guys? Like, we should really be partnering with you. We're both doing the same work, but yet we don't know what y'all are doing with your organization. We don't even know who you are. Let's connect. Let's have coffee. Let's figure out how to bring these silos together, right? So that was a really cool thing. All of that to say, with the funding that we were able to get with Pine County, you know, we were able to do this event. And Mary Jo, if you want to move the slide.
Yep. This is our last slide.
Perfect. So with the funding that we were able to get from Pine County, Again, like I said, we connected with Empower Recovery Services. I don't know if you all are friends with them on Facebook, but through this event, we were able to reach out to them to purchase some supplies, books, coins, supplies for their services, right? And let me take that back. Supplies for like recovery books. I'm trying to think of what other books, Wellbriety books. They have their coins that they give out. So we were able to order a bunch of those for them just to help support the recovery community within Pine County for those that go to Empower Recovery Services. So that was really cool. Another thing we also did with some of the funding with Pine County is the 4 schools, right? So we have a lot of partnerships with them. We purchased history, some books to go in their school, games, Indigenous history games, many different types of books. I can't even remember all the different types of books and things that we have. And so one of the things we'll be doing hopefully this month or possibly next month is dropping those off and donating them to our schools, the 4 schools in Pine County. So I know that we are missing probably a few things, but this is the gist of our work. And again, just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to those that were able to make this funding possible for us. We have so much more work to do. And so if y'all have any extra money to give, like, let us know. In all seriousness, the work needs to continue. The healing needs to continue. I know that some of you are familiar with Brooke Anderson. Brooke Anderson used to work for Hinckley. She now works for an online school. Again, just another example of sort of the networking and the partnerships that we have. She works for an online school. Yesterday, I just did a presentation for her school around historical trauma, things like that. But, you know, one of the things I shared with her yesterday is that, you know, strong individuals create strong families, and strong families create strong communities, and strong communities create a healthy world for humanity, right? And it all starts with our individual self. And when we can have that awareness of the things, of how we're showing up in this world, you know, we can really do a lot moving forward with when we choose that path to heal. And so anyways, nervous system regulation is awesome. It's a mindfulness tool that we share. And again, thank you, Pine County, for allowing the funding to happen for us. Again, there's so much more work that needs to be done. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Miigwech.
Thank you, Brianna.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any questions from the board?
I have a question. I think, I don't know if it's for Mary Jo or for Brianna. It's Commissioner Ludwig. At the beginning, you were giving statistics. How many youth were, I'm assuming there was a survey of some kind done.
Yeah.
How many youth participated in that survey?
That is a really good question. It's a statewide survey that most schools opt into to do across the state. So I'm not exactly sure the total number that responded to the survey, but I can definitely look at the data and find out that from specifically for Pine County, but I can give you the overall as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Commissioner Ludwig, that's a survey, we've got some info from that a few times. It's like third grader or what is it? Couple grades they do every year, I think they do this. So, but yeah, no, it's good information. Did you?
Yes, Commissioner Nelson here. I think this is maybe for Mary Jo. Could you just maybe give me there was a sort of a mental health that I think seminars that focus particularly for the ag community, that I think they were in ASCO and whatever, this last summer, and into the fall. Was that a University of Minnesota, your department sponsored, as well?
It could have been in partnership, so it could have been around like Safe Talk. Does that sound familiar at all as a program? Or my
I'm not
colleague
sure,
Emily.
because I didn't go, but I heard a lot of good things
Yeah.
about it. So.
Yeah, so my colleague, our colleague Emily Kreckelberg, who is in our Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resource Systems, is one of the educators within that department that we partner a lot with around farming communities and agriculture and mental health. So there's a big connection and crossover with that. So yeah, I'm sure that was her. And then she also does some other things, so she does things around suicide prevention and mental health. And then there's a new educational workshop that they do around just the changing way of life called ambiguous loss with one of our specialists in our Department of Family Social Science. So I'm sure that was probably her.
Okay.
That was, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if you want her information, I can share it with you as well.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, again, I just want to thank you guys. It is amazing what we can do with a little bit of resources, but again, it does take some resources. And unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, that's how things happen. And we just got to keep that on our radar. Hopefully we can continue to do some good stuff in Pine County and keep helping these kids out and the families out for sure. So thanks again, you guys.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, like this money allowed us to maybe like focus a little bit, but we as Extension are always supporting Pine County. So we're not going away by any means. So we are still here. So we are still going to continue this work in the ways that we can. So we just are really grateful for the opportunity for this extra funding to be able to do a little bit more wraparounds of the things that we've done in the past. So we really appreciate it. And thank you for giving us the time to present this morning. I know we probably went way over, David, so I'm sorry about that, but we're so excited to share about the work that we've done. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
problem. We didn't have a whole lot on our agenda today, so you filled it up a little bit. So
Good. So thank you again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all stay warm.
Yeah, thanks. All right, moving on to the spongy moth management proposal. We have Jennifer Burlington from the state of Minnesota Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, thank you to the board for having me on today. Sorry, Angie wasn't able to make it. She had some medical stuff come up. Am I sharing my screen correctly?
Yep.
Awesome. So to start with, I am the outreach coordinator from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I'm in the Plant Protection Division, which is just one of the little kind of silos within the Department of Agriculture as a whole. And we're going to talk about spongy moth, and then I will also talk about emerald ash borer. So to start with, I'll give you a little bit of background on spongy moth, and hopefully the slide changed. Yep, I can see it in the background of the Pine County boardroom there. Sounds good. Here we go. So the background on spongy moth. The scientific name is Lymantria dispar. It is native to Europe and North Africa, South Asia, and Japan. It was first introduced in the US in 1869 on the East Coast, and it has spread across the country and is now coming into Minnesota more often. We've been trapping in Minnesota since 1973, and we've been doing treatments or management, a couple different varieties that I'll talk about later, since 1980. And to give you a little bit on how much the spongy moth caterpillar, it's a defoliator. So the caterpillar eats all the leaves off of a tree, and then the tree can't stay healthy for very long. And then you have drought and other insects that come in and start attacking it because it's unhealthy, and they start to die. But each caterpillar consumes about a square foot of leaves per day. So if you think about an egg mass has about 500 to 1,000 eggs in it, and you have about 500 to 1,000 caterpillars come out, you can get through a forest pretty quickly with these little guys. So to talk about the life cycle a little bit of the spongy moth, you have adult moths. These male moths that are kind of a brown tan color, they actually fly during the day, unlike most other moth species that fly at night. And then the females are white. They do not fly. They are too heavy and too egg laden, laid down with too many eggs, but they don't fly. So there's not really anything distinguishable really about the male moths. I hate to call them like a blah moth, but they're kind of the brownish tannish color with some gray in them as well and some black markings. Average person, you're not going to notice exactly which one it is, but they're usually out for a week or two in August and September. They mate, they lay their egg mass. Egg masses are kind of like, they look kind of like tan Velcro, like the fuzzy side of tan Velcro, maybe a little bit lighter in color. And they lay them kind of anywhere. A lot of times they're going to be on the bark of trees. They're going to be on the underside of a table. They're going to be on like your lawnmower, some lawn ornaments that you have in your yard that don't move. They're going to lay them kind of anywhere. And so that egg mass, like I said, has about 500 to 1,000 eggs in it. And that is what you're going to see through the winter. So August and starting in August and then through May or June. Right now, if you were to go outside and look, you probably wouldn't find any in Pine County, but if you go up into Carlton County, St. Louis County, Lake and Cook County, you would probably find some on some trees there. And then the life stage that causes the defoliation is the larva or the caterpillar stage. You'll notice it has 5 blue spots, 5 pairs of blue spots in its front with its head, and then 6 pairs of red spots. That is very distinguishable on large caterpillars. On small caterpillars, you can't always see those. And to give you kind of a size comparison, when the larvae first hatch from the eggs, they're about the size, you may not be able to see it, but like think of like your pinky fingernail, the white part on your fingernail. That's about the size they are when they emerge or when they first come out of the egg mass. And then when they get to full size, it's about the size of your pointer finger. So we're talking a huge development. You can understand why they eat a square foot of leaves a day. That's a lot of growth for a little caterpillar to go from your pinky nail to your finger, your pointer finger. So they're usually active for about a month or two in May and June. And then they're going to pupate in their little cocoons, July and September, and then they're going to emerge as adults. So that's a quick overview of their life cycle there. And for you guys, we're going to focus on the adult moths and management that is proposed for 2025. And then to give you a little bit about what they like to eat. So on the left, you'll see that there are lots of species on the susceptible list. A lot of those: oak, willow, paper birch, aspen, basswood, apple. A lot of those you're going to see around in the both in the urban forest and in the forest environments that are like state forests and national forests, and then just county parks as well. And so what does it actually look like when all of these caterpillars come out and they eat all the leaves off of a tree? This is not like an early spring picture. This is a middle of summer. All of those brown areas should be green, like lower on and lower down in the picture on the left. It's all green there, and off to the right, it's more brown. That's because all those leaves are missing from those trees from a spongy moth infestation there, and the population has increased a lot. So that's what it could look like with widespread defoliation. So why are we concerned about these insects? There are health concerns with the amount of frass. So frass is like the feces of another word for feces of caterpillar. I tell the kids it's caterpillar poop. They get a laugh out of that when I do presentations for them. But health concerns is you have all this, as the caterpillars are eating, they are consuming things, and then it's going through their bodies and coming out the other end, and it's all raining down. So as you're sitting out having a nice lunch picnic, you could have all of this coming down. You could have leaf litter. Also, the hairs on the caterpillars can be irritating to people's skins. So you could get rashes if you touch them as well. Property values can go down if you have a bunch of dead trees, if you have a bunch of trees that are lacking in leaves, and then it's drought, other insects, because there's not just one insect that attacks a tree. There's lots of insects that go for all these trees. And then you'll have to remove trees, property value goes down. We also have nuisance, like I mentioned, as you're out sitting on your picnic table, trying to have a lunch or a dinner outside in the nice summer weather when it's actually warm out, unlike today, they become a really big nuisance. And the caterpillars are just constantly crawling around. And the human impacts for industry would be that we have quarantines in place. So that is limiting how the artificial spread of this insect. So making sure that people are moving things when the adults are not out or the caterpillars aren't out, and transferring them around. So making sure that activities are done in the winter, and then material is processed before spring, when all of those eggs could start emerging as caterpillars in new areas. So where is spongy moth? We are not the only state that has spongy moth coming into it. You can see on the map there, starting all up in the northeast of the United States, up into Canada, and then Michigan is covered, and then it's coming across from Wisconsin. So it's slowly moving across. And if we didn't do any management and if we didn't do any treatments, within like 25 years, it'd be all the way, it would have been all the way across into the Dakotas if there were no management the last 20 years. So we're really holding it back, making sure that forests can help. We can knock those populations down when they get really high, and keep things at a manageable level. So what does that management look like? So again, we aren't the only ones, just like we aren't the only state in the country dealing with spongy moth. You are not the only county having spongy moth management proposed for 2025. So we have about 115,000 acres in 9 counties in the state. In the north, you have Aiken, Itasca, St. Louis, Carlton, and Pine. There's a central location. There's a treatment in Coon Rapids. And then in the south, you have Houston, Fillmore, and Winona counties. As things, you can kind of notice that they're on the edge that's closest to Wisconsin. Things are coming over between artificially moving by people accidentally bringing it with them when they're traveling, or by natural spread, those moths flying. Those are the kind of the 2 ways that they're coming in. So to give you more specifics on Pine County, 4,608 acres. You'll notice on the bottom right is the Nemaji State Forest. It's entirely within that state forest area. So it's not any other lands. It's all entirely within that state forest. You guys had asked about the future kind of what spongy moth management would look like. And with Emerald Ash Borer, that I'll talk about in just a minute. So if you look at Carlton County, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of treatment areas. The future kind of looks like that. You're going to be, as spongy moth is coming over from Wisconsin, and other populations are noticed when we do trapping. So we have about 20,000 traps that we stick across the entire eastern side of the state, looking for the spongy moth males, and we attract them using a pheromone. We can narrow down on where there are locations that are reproducing. So where are these moths? Where are these egg masses? Where are males and females finding each other, making egg masses, and then having larvae come out? So you'll notice in the Carlton County, you'll notice little red, teeny tiny little red squares. Those are locations that we were able to verify that there's a reproducing population. So they get another type of additional management in those areas. But for 2025 for proposed, it's just the one in the northeast side of the county there in the state forest. So I know that was a really probably small map to look at. However, you can go online, and we do have an interactive map. What's really great about this is that you can type in your address and you can find out exactly where these treatments are proposed to occur. And then you can see if there are other ones nearby. So I always like to remind people that you can look up not just your own personal property, but any other properties that you have, cabins and anything up into Carlton County and St. Louis County and those other counties that are having proposed treatments as well. Or if you travel down south and want to see what's going on there for the summer as well. So what is being proposed for management is mating disruption. So this is a synthetic pheromone that prevents the male moths from finding females. And then there's not going to be any reproduction. So it is called Splat GMO. It is EPA certified organic, it's non-toxic, biodegradable, it's made of food grade materials, and it's specific to spongy moth. It is specific pheromone strictly for spongy moth. It's what all the traps, you may have seen some of the traps, they're little cardboard like triangles that are on trees throughout the county. And that is the same pheromone that is used and applied aerially through a contract with the U.S. Forest Service. So that is one of the planes that does some of the application in the summer. And so like I mentioned earlier, the life stage that this targets is the adult moths. So usually we have the planes come through and apply the pheromone before the moths emerge. And so then the males think that the entire area in that state forest smells like a female moth, and they can't actually find a real female moth to mate with. And so to talk more about what happens during management, so prior to the planes going in the air, we send informational postcards to all of the residents in the area. For this one, it's the state forest, so it would be people that live around that block. We would notify them that there's going to be a low-flying plane. It's going to be about 100 feet above the treetops. We have public meetings, present on it to boards. We put a legal notice in the paper. All emergency personnel and hospitals are notified of what is happening. We do some media blitzes, and everybody can sign up for email and text notifications. So we send those out the day before the planes go out, and then we usually send them out about an hour or two before the planes get up in the air, and then when everything is done. And then we have the Report a Pest hotline, which I usually answer live during all of the treatments when the aerial treatments are occurring, so that a person can quickly get their questions answered. Otherwise, usually law enforcement, when people see a really low-flying yellow plane that looks like it's going to crash into some trees, usually they just call 911, and they're well aware of what the project is. We contact them weeks before, the day before, and the day of, to make sure that they're all aware of what is going on. And then notification during treatments, we try to do some media blitzes from the airport with some of the U.S. Forest Service as well. And then we have the email and text notification. Like I said, you get the emails and text about when the planes are going to be up in the air, when they're going to be down, if there's a delay because of rain, and all that fun information. And then we have the Report a Pest hotline, like I said, that I have staffed and live, answering live. And then there's Drift Watch and Field Watch, which you can be aware of afterwards for where exactly things were, where the pheromone was applied. And so this is not, we're not the only state, like I said, in the country that is doing this. And this is not the first time it's occurring, and it's not just a willy-nilly decision that we decided to make to propose a treatment for this area. So an environmental assessment will be completed. There is an environmental impact statement for this pheromone and applying it aerially. And then any questions and comments on this proposed treatment, you can go ahead and send in to the Department of Agriculture as well. So that's a quick rundown of spongy moth proposed for 2025. And then emerald ash borer, you did ask a little bit about what is happening with EAB. And I hate to say, already my map is outdated from just a couple days ago. So the most recent find was up in Virginia last week. So that's, you probably are aware of where Virginia is, way up there. So right now, Minnesota has quarantines in place, all of these red areas, which means that you cannot leave that contiguous red area with any ash, which would be green, white, or black ash, most likely in Minnesota, with any life stage of emerald ash borer, any mulch, and any hardwood firewood. And firewood we consider 4 feet in length or less, because the average person can't tell exactly what is in a firewood pile by species. And then we have these generally infested areas in green that you'll notice that are around known infested trees that we have confirmed. And so, like I said, the regulated articles, ash in its lumber form, or about to be lumber, mulch, firewood, bundles, and like bulk firewood as well. To kind of give you an explanation of what quarantines are, we have 2 types of quarantines in Minnesota. We have an internal quarantine and an external. So right now we have an external quarantine, which prevents any hardwood firewood and any ash coming into our state as a whole from crossing that state line. And then internally, we have quarantines for emerald ash borer and also one for spongy moth as well up in Lake and Cook County. But on the map on the left, if you think of a stop sign, red means stop, can't do it. Yellow means take caution, and green means you can do that movement. So just to give you an idea of what you can do with ash wood and ash trees and ash material and mulch and firewood is you can move within the contiguous quarantine area. So all of those red, you can see that big green arrow. If you wanted to go from where you guys are, you could go all the way down into Iowa. You could go over into Wisconsin, as long as you don't go into a non-quarantined area, which is where those red arrows are. So that's to prevent the artificial spread of emerald ash borer. It is an insect. It can fly. It does fly on its own, and it is spreading slowly, but large distance spread is usually caused by somebody bringing some infested material to a new area. So what does the future of EAB in Pine County look like? We're looking at a quarantine expansion probably as more trees are found infested and confirmed. And then in the really long run, deregulation. So as emerald ash borer spreads further and further and further into the state, there's a potential that it could be deregulated on a state level. It was deregulated on a federal level, but not each state has their own regulations on emerald ash borer now.
And by deregulated, what do you mean? We just give up?
Nope, we wouldn't give up. We would change management activities. So when a community first finds emerald ash borer, usually you're going to remove the trees that are showing signs of an infestation, and then you're going to remove trees that are in poor health that are going to be more of a target for these insects to infest. And then as it spreads throughout your community, you keep taking trees down, trying to get those down and keep the population lower in the throughout the community. And you want to avoid having standing hazard trees because of lack of management. So you want to remove trees as they come up and throughout the time, because there's nothing that is going to completely eradicate emerald ash borer from an area. You can protect individual trees with treatments. However, large-scale treatments aren't realistic. You're not able to have that much funding to treat all the trees. So you kind of pick and choose if you want to treat trees to save individual trees, but otherwise removal. Because like I said, there's nothing that is going to completely eradicate emerald ash borer from the landscape. And so as your community has more and more infested trees, your management tactics will change as you remove individual trees that are infested as you find them, and then trying to remove those poor quality trees, and then trying to make a plan for how to remove pretty much all the ash trees, or treat them to save their canopy and start replanting with a variety of species instead of just one species. And then once you become extremely infested, it's more, which hopefully you don't get to that point, is it's more of what are the most hazardous trees that are going to fall on people that are going to be out on the parks, roadsides. A lot of boulevard trees are going to become hazards very quickly. Ash they do not hold their moisture well. They start to just become very brittle and just start falling apart. If you've ever seen anybody take down an ash tree that's healthy, it just kind of tips over and the branches still kind of hold it up. If you look at an ash tree that's completely infested with emerald ash borer, you watch it and you see it going towards the ground and it just shatters. And all of those branches just go all over the place. And hopefully not hitting any cars nearby. And it just, I've watched it in a couple of communities and it just goes everywhere. They're very, very brittle, and we want to prevent any damage that those trees could cause to both a person and any private property as well. So management tactics change as you go in that, as you become more infested. And so it's spreading the management out over the most amount of time so that you can budget and you can manage it over a longer period of time instead of having to deal with all just standing dead trees that are just going to start falling over and dropping branches. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, are you still going?
Yep, still going. Just a couple more slides, then I'll be done here. So there are a couple options for some assistance. There's the Department of Agriculture does not have any financial assistance. We can help with identifying infested trees and helping with education and things. But for financial things, you would have to go to the Department of Natural Resources. And so they have a forest stewardship program. There are forest health specialists. I believe August Kramer with the DNR is the forest health specialist within Pine County. And then we have Eric Otto and Rachel as well with the DNR. But they can have access to cost share, forest management issues and projects. And you can check out the website, the DNR, the Forest Stewardship. You can look up on their website as well. There's also the DNR Urban and Community Forestry Program resources. So this has some financial assistance available for communities and sometimes for residents as well. So individual communities can apply for these grants to be able to then grant out to their community if they are financially unable to manage or to remove some of their infested ash trees. So those usually open up in the summer after the legislative session. So you can check out their website right now. I don't believe they have any grants currently open right now, but it is something that the county and the community and the individual cities could apply for. And then there's also area community foresters. So there's like a overarching forest health specialists that are more statewide, and then there's more community foresters at a local level that would also be able to help you and also any of the communities within the county help make more of a plan for all their ash trees. And then I always like to plug how to report both spongy moth and emerald ash borer or any other type of invasive insect, or if you see a tree that's dying that seems kind of unusual, or you see disease on a plant, or like a large insect like a brown marmorated stink bug crawling around in your house when it gets warm this spring, you can always contact us at Report a Pest. You can also contact a city forester or use EdMaps if you want to use an app or online. You can do that as well. We also have a phone number you can call, 888-545-6684, and you can leave a message and we can get back to you. We greatly appreciate pictures. We're very good at identifying insects and trees by pictures and any notes that you can send to us as well. If you happen to feel inclined to capture the insect, you can always throw it in a little baggie and either put it in the fridge or in the freezer and send us a picture as well. And then if you have any questions specifically about the spongy moth proposed treatments, Matt Gallo would be the person to contact. And if you have any questions for our entomologist, Angie Amborn is her contact information on there.
Hey, well, thank you. I got a couple questions. The first one was, so, and it does look like, I think you kind of answered it, you do treat private property as well, it looks like. Do the landowners have any say in that, or is it just something that is happening? I can't imagine why you would oppose it, but I just was curious.
Yep. So we do. We send a postcard out to everybody specifically for the insecticide treatment. So all those little red spots on there are what's called BTK, which is the insecticide that actually, it's a biological insecticide that goes for spongy mouth caterpillars. And so it's applied to the tree, to the leaves in the canopy of the tree. And then as the caterpillars are ingesting it, they would consume it and then they would pass away. So those residents, specifically for the insecticide, are notified. Actually, this month they'll be notified of the proposed treatments. However, for mating disruption, it's through news releases and through public notification through board meetings and community meetings. That notification is given for the mating disruption treatments, because it is just a pheromone, and it is we are a partner in the larger Forest Service. It's a Forest Service project that we are partnering with, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
No, that sounds good. I did, while you were talking, I did sign up for the alert, the text alert, so so we'll see. Not that I live around there, but I decided it'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I was gonna put, sorry to interrupt you, but I was gonna put all of you onto the text and email notification, so you are aware of what your community members are getting. If you don't want to do that, just let us know. I can keep you off of that. I was just going to do the email one. So you'll just get an email with what your community members are going to be getting. So I apologize. It will probably be at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning that you'll get an email when we send out notification if planes are going up for the day, if this project continues. But in regards to the notification too, I forgot to say that everybody does get that is within the proposed treatment areas and a buffer around it, because the planes have to turn around about a half mile. They need to turn around as they're doing their loops. It looks like they're just up there being confused in the air when they're flying. But everybody does get a postcard about a week before the planes go up, whether you're mating disruption or the more specific insecticide.
And do you road, or do you kind of work your way through the area, or is it, do you get a bunch of planes and do it all in one quick path, I guess?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. The U.S. Forest Service contracts usually with a company, and they usually bring about 4 to 6 planes that will do the application. And then there's usually 2 planes that are spotter planes. Because these planes are so low, they're about 100 to 150 feet above the tree tops, which usually a plane can only fly at lowest about 500 feet above the tree tops. So they're very low. So that's why they have a couple spotter planes that are just going in circles up above, watching more than one plane. And yes, we try to start, we would start probably in the Pine County, the state forest there, and then we would try to move up. But depending on weather, if it's raining down in Pine County and it's not raining up in near Hibbing, that would change how we would do things. But yes, there's about 4 planes that will go through and do the applications throughout the day. Usually 4 different areas at once.
So, and I know it all depends on weather and everything, but how long do you think it would take to do this proposed period?
Probably it depends on how many planes we'd put in there, maybe a half day. I can't remember the exact, how many.
I meant the whole, that whole,
Oh,
yeah. I
the
mean, is that
whole
a week-long project or something like that, or is it?
Yeah. It'll be about a week. Because I think
Okay.
they can do about a couple, yeah, I want to say about, I don't remember the exact number.
Oh.
I know it's around 1,700, but I can't remember if it's in a half a day or if it's in within 2 hours. But they have to come back, and so it would be at least a couple hours to do in Pine County, and then each of those is a couple hours. Some of those larger blocks may take a whole day, depending on how many planes they put in those larger blocks.
It doesn't take.
Perfect, thank you. And I know we got Greg here, and I know he's been, as far as MLS for, he's been trying to get ahead of that curve a little bit over the last couple of years, so I do appreciate that. And I know you guys do communicate, but is there anything that, you know, us as a county can do with the spongy moth to try to slow it down or curb it, other than this, I guess, as far as forest management goes? And I'm guessing you communicate with the foresters already, but just curious.
Yeah, good question. It'd be more to do with a homeowner, with residents noticing and reporting in when they see the caterpillars, if they see the egg masses. That I wish I could travel around the state all summer looking for egg masses and caterpillars in everybody's yards, but I can't. And so we rely on the public to report in, and then we also use the traps. So making sure that people are aware that the little tan cardboard traps that are on the trees are specifically looking for this spongy moth, so that we can track the population throughout the state and notice when those the male moth catches. Usually if there's about 10 in an area, that's probably going to mean that there's a reproducing population. There's some egg masses around that somebody may have inadvertently brought over. So just making sure that the public is aware that watch out for these tan colored, quarter sized, fuzzy little egg masses on their property, whether it's a tree or on like some lawn furniture, porch pots, kind of anywhere that an insect could crawl on. There's a potential that an egg mass could be there.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
did we have an application a few years ago closer to Hinckley?
Yep,
Yeah, I thought
along the government road,
yeah,
along the Kettle River there. It was just south, they came right up to my house.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was that 3 years ago?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, time flies, I guess, but
All right, any other questions? Well, thank you again.
thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you informing us, and keeping us.
Yeah, thank you.
And doing the work. All right, well, moving on, we'll move on to number 5, which is fourth quarter 2024 budget.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, being Meeking County Administrator, this is just a snapshot as of the end of last year, how finances are, with the caveat that it's all unaudited, that there will be adjustments, that all of these numbers will change. However, I think it's important to communicate that at year end, it appears the county is in a good financial position, that the budget, both expenditures and revenues, was fairly accurate. And we met our budget requirements, and I've got 4 slides that just summarize. And so if you look at chart 1, this just shows expenditure and revenues by the major funds. Everything looks as we would expect it at this time of year. Health and Human Services, the revenue always lags a little bit because it's primarily reimbursements. So those will continue to come in through the accrual period to the end of March. Second chart which looks at the general fund specifically, one ahead. And number two, there we go, thank you. This one just looks at revenue in the general fund departments. Planning and zoning kind of jumps out as high. We have received some watershed one plan grants during the year that funnel through that department. And so it's not negative, or I guess it's not a positive or a negative, it's just that it is where that money funnels through, so it makes the budget a little bit out of whack in the revenues. In the sheriff's office, you'll notice that revenues look a little bit lower than you'd want at the end of the year, but we do know there is a $68,000 contract payment that's still coming, and will make that look better. So it's not a cause for concern. Chart number 3 looks at the red line is the expenditures in the general fund departments, and then the line is the 4-year average. And everything looks about as we would expect. You notice the recorder expenditures both this year or for 2024 and historically are above budget. And that really just factors back to the recorder technology and recorder compliance funds when we buy software and other technology purchases. We don't always capture those in the budget. And so it's money that we have that we're spending in reserves. It just makes the budget a little wonky. The other, I guess, macro conclusion that I draw from this chart is every year we get a little bit more accurate in our budget. And so there isn't excess budget. Maybe if there would have been excess budget 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, that's making that black line look below the budget percent. And then the last chart is Health and Human Services. And the public health one is the lowest revenue at 79%. We do have planned expenditure of reserves in that fund, and so that's not a concern. We have some maybe home visiting money left that we're still spending. So thumbnail sketch, everything for 2024 looked pretty good and looked about as we would have expected. So, open to your questions.
Yeah, anybody got any questions?
Nope.
Very good, thank you. All right, legislative update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just an opportunity, I've got a few things I'll share, and then certainly you all might have some thoughts on the legislative session or conversations with legislators, et cetera. But we do know that the legislature is meeting now, and they're in full swing. It's a very divided legislature, which means that it's unlikely that any one party is going to get everything they want. And it's not guaranteed that we're going to get anything, right? Because there has to be agreement down there for bills to pass under the legislature and get to the governor. The budget is, I think, going to be very challenging for them this year, but we will see. And there is still a special election in March. I think it's March 11th for a House seat that is represents Roseville and Shoreview area in the Twin Cities. Right now, the Republicans have a 1-seat majority. Depending on how that special election goes, after that, it might be a dead tie. So, the legislative conference is next week. I think Roger, Josh, and I are all planning on being down there for parts or all of it. So I appreciate that. The focus in the last week or so has really been on highlighting the governor's budget and how that budget is shifting costs from the state to the counties. And so we know with just like the waiver services program, that's going to create almost $600,000 potentially in costs. And there are local resources to put into those programs. And so clearly that governor's budget is not the one that's going to be adopted, but it is a concern when anyone comes out of the gate with that big of a cost shift. The February forecast is due the first week of March. And the January revenue numbers from the state are below where the November forecast put them. So the original November forecast had a had a $616 million surplus in the upcoming biennium. Any reduction in revenue is gonna cut into that, and 600 million is a lot for you and me, but for the state budget, it's not a big number. So we know there's a structural deficit out there as well. So it'll be interesting to see, I think once the February forecast comes out in March, it will really put a focus on, I think, the budget piece. So that's about everything I know at this point.
Yeah, go ahead. I did, if you got the AMC update, you'll notice in there that they talked about, some people going down there and testifying. I did get a chance to look at that hearing, and I did see our administrator that testified, and I appreciate that. And I thought that whole testimony section was good, saying you can't cost shift all this stuff on the counties because it's going to burn through, any increases or reserves that we have, and how are we going to pay for that? Now, obviously, the negotiations aren't done. It's a proposal, but with the downturn that you see and the fact that, the last year's biennium legislature blew through an $18 billion surplus. I don't know that it looks that great for counties. Even if we can get them not to cost shift, there's going to be some things happening there, and I'm really concerned about what the effects are going to be on us as a county long term. And I would just say, knowing that we need to be mindful of that, even as we go. It's early in our budget year, but we need to be really mindful of what may happen. Hopefully, it's not as severe as it could be, but you don't know. And so I'm just saying that as we as a county and we look at our budgets, I'm just saying, well, it's in the budget, that's okay, but it's going to put us in perhaps a real predicament come next December. So that's just my overall concern.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Can I just add to that, that Roger makes a really good point, right? We don't know what the future holds, but I don't think we can sit here in good conscience thinking there's going to be more state or federal money in 2026 or 2027 or 2028. And just to give a magnitude, in 2023, the county received $8 million of federal funds. So that's a huge amount of money. And so I appreciate maybe the focus, Roger, that you're bringing on our budget, that we're going to have to be very thoughtful for the next 12, 14, 18, 24 months, probably for the rest of our, I don't know, lifetimes maybe. It's hard. It's hard. I think it's going to be hard. But I think once we get a little more clarity from the state legislature and the federal government, it's easier to inform decisions.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions for Dave? Or Kyle? Okay, moving on to commissioner updates, Iron Pine Solar public meeting. Anybody go to that?
I did not get to it.
Okay,
I wanted to get to it, but I couldn't get there.
sounds good. Looks like State Community Health Services Advisory Committee.
And Roger was absent from that. I know Sam Lowe, community health administrator, was going to go. I don't know that there's any update at this time.
Okay, Central Minnesota Council on Aging.
Yes, we met because of we've had a line of credit in previous years. Never have dipped into it. I believe the possibility could exist that we might have to, because the Council on Aging is not, doesn't have a year's worth of cash on hand to pay vendors. So I've met with the lending institution. I've met with the senior staff away from the board meeting. We have conveyed to our major vendors, this would be Catholic Charities and Lutheran Social Services that provide meals, congregate dining and home delivered meals, that the money will come, but we will probably have to delay payment to them, because I think they've got some fallback protection that probably the Council on Aging doesn't have. So we'll have to see how this whole thing plays out. Maybe that the Older American Act is a pretty kind of sacred cow. It's hard to pick on senior citizens, but we'll see what happens. That's it.
Meeting with Senator Rarick, me and Commissioner Ludwig met, it was very good. I had burned out a little early, but we got through pretty much the same as we did with everybody else. He was very, very open to communicate, and we expressed a lot of our issues, like Commissioner Nelson was talking about. That was pretty fresh on our stuff with the budget. And I do believe he is on our side and continues to fight for us. Unfortunate part is he's one person, and not the majority, but he will keep working, and trying to help us out as much as possible. Did you understand?
Yeah, well, I think we hit him on our normal the SSIS computer whole mess, and he's on board. The state just needs to hire a contractor, and he gave an example where they finally did that and they were done in months, had everything up and running, where the state was hanging around for a year and a half, wasting money. So anyway, we brought up everything, the casino sales tax and those things, and I think what was really interesting, then I even talked to him, Steve, about the tax classifications in the state and how come we have so many. And he used to sit on that committee, and he feels the same way, but he didn't really answer that why, he said he's working really hard right now and on redoing the whole formula that the school tax works under, for the schools, to make that a better thing. So that's what they're working on in a committee, which I thought was interesting. Other than that, I think, everything else, we AMC priorities, the county priorities, we covered all that. State budget.
Yeah, and Becky was there and she talked to him again about all the health and human services stuff, the cost shifts, the SSIS, all that too. So, and it's just great to have someone like that there that can give all the specifics, and he wants to listen, and he has advocated for us a lot and pioneered some bills. So hopefully something happens in the state legislature. I don't know if it's gonna, but the benefit counties here. So we'll see. District Court Security Committee.
I missed that, but Dave, I think, did you make it?
I did, and I can just in 30 seconds, it really discussed many of the things that the facility committee already reported on. And was very supportive, the courts were very supportive of the efforts the county's making on increasing security at the entrance departments.
All right, East Central Regional Juvenile Center.
Yep, I went to that. So, you heard me talk before about the non-member beds were going up so high, and other counties were using, but they weren't members. And then we had that whole thing, that's where we stayed committed to keeping a bed, because the non-member bed was driving it so high, and we need a bed. Well, anyway, so now that's falling off. The non-membership those numbers are just dropping a little bit, but their numbers are still up because people are joining. Some other counties, 3 counties joined as one group. But the big decision we had to make was the surplus. And there's always a surplus, and do we give it back to the counties and I don't know, they haven't done it since I've been going. But now there's always a project. So they finished the elevator project in October, which we talked about before. And now the roof has to get replaced next summer because it's a 28-year-old building. So they moved the surplus of 100, or we voted, we all did. We moved it to the capital reserves, so it's there to do the roof project. So pretty much the gist of it. But that was $121,995,79.
Okay. East Central Solid Waste.
Yes, the building in Cambridge is getting closer to reality. That's the building that the nonprofit that's there taking stuff out of the trash and the reuse center, I believe they call it. And so they take stuff that looks, well, I've been there. Some of that stuff is brand new that people throw away, and they take it and they sell it. So that we got a grant from them to help build that building. They supply a person. They pay that person, they cover that person's insurance. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's keeping stuff out of the landfill. It's making that nonprofit some money, and it's we get a percentage of their sales. So it's not a bad lick. We continue to have seems like we have a fire every time we have a meeting, a landfill fire, and they've learned how to deal with them. You know, they got to dig them out and extinguish them, and it's like a peat fire is my best analogy. If you've ever been around one of those, they're difficult to get, but 100% caused by batteries, people not adhering to the do not throw your battery in the trash. And as lithium batteries become more and more prevalent, it seems like the fire issue has gone up.
That is one thing we did talk about, not batteries, but solid waste. We did talk to Senator Rarick about that as well. And it is on his radar, and it is an AMC priority.
Yeah.
Just figuring out what to do with landfills. One thing too is, like you mentioned, the lithium batteries. We as I don't know if it's a state or nation, we don't have a very good way of dealing with them as of right now. I know even at my business, I do get some lithium batteries because power tools and stuff like that. And our company, which is, NAPA in general, they don't have a nationwide recycling program. We do for lead acid, we do for, everything else, but that is something that does need to be on radar because
Mr. Chair, we do have a pretty good program at Pine County. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't follow it or adhere to it, but at our recycling centers at Willow River, the transfer station in Hinckley, and in Pine City, you can bring them in and get rid of them for free, and then they get them sent off to a battery recycling center.
It was funny. This was a while back. I talked to Caleb about it, and he gave me the number to do it myself. But they wanted to charge me. I don't remember how much it was. It was quite a bit of money. Apparently, businesses they want to nail you for it. If it was the county, then they don't care. But yeah, so that's just kind of one of the things that is a little interesting as well. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's all good. But so how big a battery does it have to be to cause a fire like that? Is it like a cordless drill battery type of deal?
It could be a little lithium battery that would run a flashlight.
Really?
Most of them are probably old drill batteries or something.
Okay. I was just curious, cause I think like the little watch batteries, they don't care, them could get tossed, right? Or is that,
I couldn't tell you, Josh.
They're mostly so they don't matter.
okay, alright. Sounds good, cool, well, thanks for the update, East Central Regional Library.
Sure, report on that is, at our next upcoming meeting, probably what is most, on the forefront is the fact that there are other counties that have requested to relook at the joint powers agreement. So we will, the 6 commissioners who make up, the budget committee, will be taking a look at that beginning at this next meeting. We're actually having a special meeting. So, I don't know what the outcome of that's gonna be, but obviously there's some concern with the way it's actually structured at this point. So, and none of the counties that are interested in doing that. So again, I'm new to that, but that's already been in the works. So, we'll see what the outcome of that is, but I think that the part of it is we're gonna look at what is the statutory requirements, and then a look at what's the formula that's been, and it really boils down to funding. There's some language issues, but it's really funding. You know, what the joint powers agreement is right now, that formula, some think it's a little unfair. So it's kind of all on the table. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of those discussions look like.
There's a statutory minimum, right?
Yes.
Good luck, Commissioner Nelson. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time since I've been on the board that somebody thinks they're being treated unfairly, and sometimes it gets changed and sometimes it doesn't. And then 4 years later, somebody thinks they're getting treated unfairly. And I don't know if it, somebody told me once, when you're in a joint powers agreement, the idea of cooperation is nobody gets what they want. But you got to make it work.
And I remember, what is it, it's circulation, tax
capacity and population.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
And I'm trying to recollect, I think when this has come up before, it's fast growing counties that see the increase on the population factor and also the tax capacity factor and the usage factor, as they're growing, right? So they get what they might consider an unfair portion of the increase. Well, that's.
Well, we haven't had Mr. Chair, we haven't had the discussion yet, but that's what I'm gathering, that those are some of the issues, and again, we'll see where it goes, but there certainly seem to be a lot of questions about this statutory minimum and the fact that the legislature, they changed that requirement. Oh, it was probably, I think, 10 years ago. So, which was, probably, whatever. So we'll be going through that as well.
And
Is there any change in, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I know that's more than 10 years old. Because when I first come on, I was on that, and they were advocating to get it changed at that time. The other thing is the libraries in general are trying to get a little bit more effort from the state as well to pick up, because I think their funding, what was it, Steve? It hadn't changed. That hasn't changed in even longer than that. Their funding from the state. Yeah.
Hasn't changed for years.
Yeah, like over 10 years, I think. So, and maybe there was one in there, I don't know, but yeah. So go ahead.
My question is the usage of the library changing with all of our instant technology?
Yeah, no, I think usage is I guess I'm not sure. Most of it's digital.
This, or is it for books?
Well, they don't use them, they don't buy a whole lot of paper books anymore, it's mostly digital. From what I remember, yeah, it was.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm just asking because I don't know. I'm not trying to.
I know when I was on the board quite a while ago now, it was already, I can't remember what it was, but the money going to digital stuff was far more than paper at that time. So
Digital costs more than books.
I don't know if it does or.
Or they might, it's still.
You know, Mr. Chair, not to get in the weeds too much, but I have found out one thing that, because I've switched over to be a audiobook user, and the librarian told me that what happens, they buy say they buy an electronic book. If you buy a paper book and 100 people check it out, that's a really good, return on your investment. You buy a electronic version of that same book and you buy, say, 15 checkouts, and then you got to resubscribe. You're not buying the rights to let somebody check that book out forever. It's kind of a strange thing in my mind, but that's the way it is.
Well, Roger will be very versed in all of it here shortly, so good luck. I'll keep you updated.
All right, good luck.
Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation Partnership.
Yes, we met the other day. Had some presentations on oh gosh, I gotta look here and see what they called it. Infrastructure needs assessment and emission targets, because that all figures into the formula, believe it or not, of how you get your federal funding, which trickles down eventually to some of the money we get. But the stuff I did understand was the fact that there was some federal money left over, and we awarded some contracts to St. Louis County and Carlton County to complete a couple of federalized projects in their area. Interesting what's happened in some of these construction projects. There's a 1/4 mile of county road by a school in Cloquet in Carlton County that's going to cost $1.8 million. 1/4 mile, because of all the infrastructure that's in that road. That's what we deal with on some of these municipal county road projects. So it can eat up a budget in a hurry. Luckily, they're getting federal money to help with that. That's about it.
All right, soil and water.
Did not attend.
Okay. Pine County Education Leadership Network. Dave, do you want to go on?
Sure, thanks. So I was able to attend that. It was quite a robust conversation. So I don't know if that was because the county commissioners weren't there or because Joe Mulford from the college wasn't there, but the school board members really had an engaging conversation on a number of issues. Talked about 4-day school day or 4-day school week. I guess Ogilvy has that. It didn't sound like anyone was rushing towards that. But the savings, the transportation was kind of the conclusion. Talked about cell phone policies. Willow River has a policy that I think others are attempting to follow. Talked about declining enrollments. All of the districts in the county are facing declining enrollments. And so that is a concern for everybody. And East Central in particular talked about the increasing number of low incidence students, so students who are blind, deaf, nonverbal, or have some other significant issue that requires a lot of school resources. And that number has been going up. And then we had some shared issues, the earned safe and sick time and paid family and medical leave. The school districts really are getting hit by that. And then also just a general concern about state government shifting requirements without shifting money to local governments. The next meeting is April 30th, 6 p.m., hosted by Pine City Schools.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
So were you still there when we talked about the paid medical leave with Rarick?
yes.
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring that up because before he had our meeting, we talked about that too, let's keep it 50-50 and clean that statute up. He was up at Barnum before he came down and met with us. And that school, they said that school, he was meeting with school teachers on something, and they said every school is going after that thing in their contracts too, just like we had and when we were doing our negotiations, so. It's everybody's hot on that thing. We forgot to fill that part in too.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you. I did do a little recruiting for that meeting, and then I had a hockey game come up that I go to. So I caught hell for it. I had a different hockey game. I seen two of the board members are like, "Where the heck were you? You told us to come," and I didn't show up. So thanks, Dave, for covering, and I appreciate it. So. Kettle, Upper St. Croix, one Waters.
Yep, we had our meeting, because it was moved, just because of the new commissioners coming on board, so. I think I reported last time, Carlton County, Gary Peterson is no longer a county commissioner, so, but he ran for the Soil and Water, so he was on there and he got appointed back down to this meeting anyway, but he's only with Pine County Soil and Water, but his replacement, Dan Reed, came down and we met him and we got the chair and the vice chair and everybody elected, so we're back up and running. And then we just did a brief review. There's no work really happening now with winter and but they have some project lined up for the thing. But you remember the big project I reported on, that big feedlot up in Carlton, and they did that big feed building thing? That thing is turned out way better because they thought they had in their project, and I said they thought they might have had a wetland violation, so that it was all sanctioned and done, and there was huge federal one on that, like $400 and some thousand. The one watch some plan, which is the smaller chunk of that, but it all worked out fine. It was not a wetland, and then that phosphorus reduction happening on that project was just unbelievable. How many ponds are not going in the Moose Horn River there. But anyway, it was quick. Just a quick review and we were done and out the door.
Perfect, thank you. Extension committee, one thing, I had to run early out of that too. We got too many hockey games lately, so I think we're on the still, but we did, the chair, she did kind of run through some voting things, so we did pick up our family of the year. They're working on getting that all finalized, so we did vote on that. I'm not gonna say who it is yet, because before all of a sudden we voted on it, went for the first I decline. But so we'll wait till that's all settled. And then we had a new board member start, which went through a while, but Herb Mangan is the new board member, and that's in my district, and he does work for FACE. He's a good guy, got a bunch of kids in 4-H and stuff like that, so he'll be a great asset to that group. And I was just looking real quick, I did get some questions about cannabis by one of the members, and they're a little concerned how that was going to affect like our aid side, but it isn't there yet. So she had a lot of good questions for me, and hopefully I had sufficient answers. But I think that was anything any other meetings anybody have? Is there anybody wants to bring before the board? Otherwise, take a peek at your upcoming meetings. There's a bunch on there, like the conference next week, and I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.